The galactic station was alive with noise and movement. Ships came and went, lights flashed, and thousands of aliens walked through the wide metal halls. Merchants shouted about their goods, machines beeped and hummed, and travelers hurried to their destinations. It was a place where no one cared about strangers, and everyone was busy with their own life. In the corner of one crowded walkway stood a small figure. Her skin was pale blue, her thin arms trembling, and her large eyes filled with tears. She was a child, maybe 10 years old by human measure, but no one looked at her. She whispered softly for help, but her voice was lost in the noise of the station. Her name was Lyra. Her chest rose and fell in painful gasps, each breath a struggle. Her lungs burned, her throat dry, and her legs weak. She pressed her hand against her ribs, trying to hold the pain inside, but her strength was leaving her. The aliens walked past her. Some glanced for a moment but turned away quickly. Others made disgusted sounds, muttering about troublemakers and weaklings. To them, Lyra was invisible, just another burden. Another life that did not matter, she whispered again. "Help me," her voice thin and broken. But the crowd swallowed her words, her knees gave way, and she fell to the cold metal floor. Her body shook, her breath sharp and shallow, her tears sliding down her cheeks, and still no one stopped. No one bent down, no one reached a hand. They ignored her as if she was not there. Her cry for help was drowned by the endless noise of the galactic station. Then, in the middle of the rushing crowd, one man stopped. He was human, his clothes worn and dirty from hard work, his hands rough, covered with small cuts from machines and tools. His name was Daniel, a mechanic who lived in the lower decks of the station. Daniel's eyes caught the small figure on the floor. For a moment he hesitated, hearing the warnings of others. Humans were always told not to interfere with alien affairs, but something inside him refused to walk away. He knelt down beside her, his voice steady but gentle. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked. Lyra's eyes opened slowly, her lips trembling as she tried to speak, her voice cracked. "Please, I can't breathe." Daniel placed his hand near her chest and heard the faint wheezing. Her breathing was not normal, it was broken, desperate. As if her lungs were failing, he looked around, waiting for someone else to help. But the crowd kept moving. Some aliens shook their heads, muttering, "Leave her, human. It's not your problem." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. How could they all ignore her? She was just a child. He lifted her carefully into his arms, feeling how light she was. Her body trembled against him, her breaths shallow and quick. As he carried her, Lyra whispered weakly, They don't want me. They won't help me." Daniel frowned, his heart heavy. "Don't worry, kid. I've got you," he said, though inside he wondered what danger he had just stepped into. The station lights flickered as he walked through the lower halls. Every corner felt like eyes were watching him. He could hear whispers from the shadows, aliens warning each other that a human was carrying the sick child. Still he kept moving, his grip on her firm, his steps fast. Lyra coughed, a painful sound that echoed in the narrow passage. Daniel tightened his hold, whispering to calm her. "It's okay, you'll be fine, just hang on." But deep inside, fear grew. Her body felt weaker with each passing moment. Finally, he reached his small workshop, a cramped space filled with tools, scrap parts, and old machines. He laid her gently on the workbench, his hands shaking slightly, her eyes closed. Her chest rising with difficulty, Daniel stared at her, his mind racing. Who was this girl? Why had no one helped her? And why did everyone seem afraid to even go near her? He leaned closer, listening to her broken breathing. Something was wrong deep inside her chest, something that normal medicine could not fix. As Lyra opened her eyes once more, she whispered one word before darkness pulled her under. "Lungs." Daniel froze, his heart pounding. Her lungs, was that the reason she was dying? And if so, why did the entire galaxy turn away from her? The sound of machines outside hummed, the noise of the station alive as always. But inside Daniel's workshop, silence filled the air. Only the faint, fragile breath of the alien girl remained, and Daniel knew in that moment that his life had just changed forever. Daniel sat by the workbench, his eyes fixed on the small alien girl who lay unconscious. Her breathing was weak, each inhale a struggle, each exhale a whisper. The noise of the galactic station was far away now, replaced by the hum of broken machines in his workshop. For a moment he wondered if he had made a mistake. He had carried her through crowded halls. Ignoring the stares and mutters of the aliens, he had ignored the warnings, the threats whispered at his back. Stay away, human. She is not your problem, they had said. But Daniel could not leave her to die in the corner like trash. His human heart refused to look away. Still, fear pressed against his mind. He knew the galactic laws. Helping certain species was forbidden. The council had rules, strict and merciless. If anyone found out what he had done, he could lose his workshop. His freedom, even his life, Lyra stirred, her pale blue hand reaching weakly into the air. Daniel leaned closer, his rough hand gently holding hers. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly with alien light. She whispered, "White. Why did you help me?" Daniel hesitated, searching for words. "I couldn't just walk away," he finally said, his voice low. Her lips trembled into something close to a smile, but her cough broke it apart. She gasped and pressed her hand to her chest again. He reached for a cracked water flask and lifted it to her lips. She drank slowly, her throat dry, her breath still shaky. After a moment, she whispered again. "My name is Lyra." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel," he replied softly. The silence between them stretched. Lyra's small body shook, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Then she whispered words that froze Daniel in place. "My lungs, they are broken. They cannot heal without help. I will die." Daniel felt a chill. He had guessed something was wrong inside her chest, but hearing it confirmed made his stomach tighten. He looked around his workshop, full of spare parts and old machines. He was a mechanic, not a doctor, but as he stared at her fragile frame, he felt something burning inside him. A choice. Outside, voices echoed faintly. The patrol was walking the hall, searching for someone. Daniel's chest tightened as he realized they were looking for her. The entire station seemed to know, and yet no one cared enough to save her. Lyra saw the fear in his eyes. She whispered, "You should let me go if they find me here. They will punish you too." Daniel clenched his fists, anger rising in him. What kind of galaxy punishes a man for saving a child? He muttered. She looked away, her voice barely audible. "The kind that believes my people should not exist." Those words hit him harder than a blow. He understood now. This was more than just sickness. This was something the council wanted to ignore. To them, Lyra's life was not worth saving. But to Daniel it was. He stood and began pacing the room, his thoughts heavy. He could hand her over to the patrol and be safe. Or he could fight the law, risk everything, and try to help her. One choice led to safety, the other to danger. But only one choice felt right. Lyra's breathing grew sharper. Faster, each breath like a knife. Daniel stopped pacing and looked at her. Her small frame trembled, her skin turning pale. Something inside him broke. He could not let her die, not while she looked at him with those desperate eyes. He moved to his shelves, pulling tools, wires, and old circuits. His mind raced with half-forgotten ideas from Earth. Old medical technology, artificial breathing machines, air filters from ruined ships, pieces of knowledge he had never thought he would use. Lyra watched him weakly, her voice faint. "What are you doing?" Daniel glanced back at her, determination burning in his eyes. "I'm going to fix this, Lyra. I'm going to build you new lungs." She gasped softly, disbelief in her trembling voice. You cannot. No one has tried. No one dares." Daniel shook his head, his jaw tight. "Maybe no one else, but I will." The sound of footsteps echoed again in the hallway outside. Louder this time, voices spoke in harsh tones. They say the human was seen carrying her. Search his quarters. Daniel's blood ran cold. They were close, too close. He grabbed a heavy wrench and pushed a crate in front of the door. His heart pounded in his chest. He looked at Lyra, who lay trembling on the bench. Her fragile breath sounded louder than the patrol outside. For the first time in years, Daniel felt fear for his own life. But stronger than that fear was something else, a human stubbornness, a will that refused to bend. He knelt beside her, his voice steady despite the danger. "You're not going to die here. Not while I'm still breathing." Lyra's eyes widened. Tears forming at the corners, she whispered, "Why risk everything for me?" Daniel answered without hesitation, "Because no one else will. And because it's the right thing to do." The footsteps stopped just outside the door. A shadow passed under the crack. The patrol captain's voice rang out, "Open up, human. We know she's inside." Daniel's hand tightened around the wrench. The choice was made. He was not going to give her up, even if it meant standing against the galaxy itself. The pounding on the workshop door shook the walls. "Open up, human," the patrol captain shouted, his voice sharp and commanding. Daniel stood frozen for a heartbeat. the heavy wrench in his hand, sweat dripping down his brow. Lyra lay weak on the bench, her breath sharp and uneven, her frightened eyes fixed on him. Daniel glanced at her, then at the door. He could not fight the patrol head-on, but he also could not hand her over. Every instinct told him to hide her, to protect her no matter the cost. Quickly, he pulled a dusty tarp from a shelf and covered Lyra, tucking her small body between scrap metal piles. "Stay quiet no matter what happens," he whispered, his voice low but steady. The door rattled as the patrol tried to force it open. Daniel slid the wrench into his belt and yanked the door open just enough to block their view. Two tall reptilian guards stood there, their eyes glowing red in the dim light. Behind them, the captain narrowed his eyes at Daniel. "We've had reports you were seen carrying someone," the captain said coldly. Daniel shrugged, forcing a calm tone. "I carry scrap every day. Maybe someone saw wrong." The captain leaned forward, scanning the dark room behind Daniel. "You know the law," he hissed. "That creature is forbidden, dangerous. You will not hide it." Daniel held his ground, though his heart pounded in his chest. "You see anything dangerous in here?" "Just rust and broken machines," he said, his voice firm. For a tense moment no one moved. Then the captain waved his claw, and the guards shoved past Daniel, stomping into the workshop. They searched the shelves, kicked at the crates, and pulled at the tangled wires. Daniel clenched his fists, ready to fight if they uncovered the tarp. But Lyra remained silent, hidden in the shadows, her breaths faint but steady. After a long search, one guard snarled, "Nothing here." The captain glared at Daniel, his red eyes filled with suspicion. "If you are hiding her, human, you will regret it," he growled. Daniel forced a smirk. "If I were hiding anything, you'd have found it by now." Finally, with a hiss, the patrol left, their footsteps fading into the echoing halls. Daniel shut the door and locked it, his hands shaking as he leaned against the wall. Lyra crawled weakly from her hiding spot, her eyes wide with fear. "They know. They are hunting me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel knelt beside her, his voice soft but firm. "Then we have no time to waste. If we wait, they'll find you." Lyra's breathing grew harsher, every inhale a desperate gasp. Daniel listened carefully, his mechanic's mind already racing. Her chest sounded hollow, her lungs too weak to work on their own. Alien doctors would never touch her. They feared the council's punishment. But Daniel was different. He was human. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy for breaking rules, for creating things no one else dared. And now that reputation would be tested. He searched his shelves and pulled out broken respirators, old air filters, and discarded implants. Lyra's dim eyes followed him as he worked. What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel spread the parts across the bench, sparks from a small torch lighting his face. "I'm building you new lungs," he said, his voice calm but filled with fire. Lyra shook her head, disbelief clear in her weak expression. No one is allowed to. It's forbidden." Daniel looked at her, his jaw tight. "Maybe it's forbidden, but so what? Laws don't matter. If you're dead, I won't let you die." For hours, he worked welding, cutting, reshaping metal, the workshop filled with the smell of burning wires and the hum of machinery. His hands moved with precision, guided by old Earth knowledge and human instinct. Every piece he shaped was a risk, every spark a symbol of defiance. As he built, Lyra whispered her story. Her planet had been poisoned by mining industries, her people's air turned toxic. Many of her kind had already died, and the council had banned aid. "They say we are weak, unfit to survive, so they let us die," she murmured, her eyes full of sorrow. Daniel paused, anger burning in his chest. "Then we'll prove them wrong. We'll show them what humans can do." He fitted the first frame of the artificial lungs together, a fragile structure of metal and biogel. It was rough, not elegant like alien technology, but it was real. It was human, stubborn, creative, built from scraps. Lyra watched with hope flickering in her fading eyes, but as Daniel worked, the sound of footsteps echoed again outside the workshop, this time slower, heavier, more deliberate. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "They're back," she whispered. Clutching her chest, Daniel's hands froze, the half-built lungs glowing faintly under the work light. The voices outside were different, deeper, colder, not just patrol guards but officials. "The council will not tolerate disobedience," one voice said. "Search again, the human mechanic is hiding her," another answered. Daniel's stomach twisted. The secret he had chosen was more dangerous than he thought. It was not just about saving a child. It was about defying the entire galactic law. If they caught him now, they would not just arrest him, they would erase him. He looked at Lyra, her fragile body trembling with every breath. The half-finished lungs on his bench seemed to glow like a forbidden light. He whispered to himself, "No turning back now." And as the footsteps drew closer, Daniel tightened his grip on his tools, ready to fight not only for her life, but for the forbidden secret that could change everything. The sound outside Daniel's workshop grew heavier. Not just boots of patrol guards, but metal footsteps of enforcement drones. Lyra's weak body trembled as her eyes darted to the door. Daniel grabbed the half-built lungs and pushed them under a pile of scrap. Hiding the forbidden project, the door shook as a fist pounded on it. "Human mechanic open now by order of the Galactic Council," a cold voice commanded. Daniel's heart raced. He could not let them see Lyra, and he could not let them discover his work. He rushed to her side and whispered, "Quiet." Not a sound. Lyra's lips trembled, but she nodded, pressing her hand against her chest to stifle her coughs. Daniel pulled a lever near the wall, and a hidden compartment in the floor clicked open. It was a small crawl space he used for smuggling tools. He gently lowered Lyra inside and slid the panel shut. Covering it with a crate, the pounding grew louder. "Last warning, human." Daniel opened the door just before it broke apart. Forcing a tired smile onto his face, 3 guards entered, followed by a tall figure in dark robes, the council inspector. The inspector's eyes glowed silver, scanning the room like a predator. "You were seen carrying the forbidden one," he said coldly. Daniel forced a shrug. "You must have seen wrong." "Inspector, I carry scrap, not children." The inspector stepped closer, the glow in his eyes pulsing. "You lie, human. Your kind always lies." The guards began tearing apart the workshop, throwing crates, kicking at piles of metal. Daniel clenched his fists, ready to fight if they uncovered the floor panel. Every second stretched like eternity. His breath was shallow, his body tense. Lyra remained hidden below, silent as stone. Finally, after long minutes, the guards growled, "Nothing here." The inspector's silver eyes narrowed at Daniel. "If we find out you are protecting her, human, there will be no mercy," he hissed. Daniel forced a smirk, though his heart thundered. "You're welcome to search every day, but all you'll find is junk." With a sharp gesture, the inspector left, the guards following. The heavy footsteps echoed away into the hall. Daniel slammed the door shut and locked it, collapsing against the wall. His hands shook with relief and fear. He opened the floor panel, and Lyra crawled out, her face pale but alive. Her voice trembled. "They will not stop. They will come again stronger." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we can't stay here." Her eyes widened in fear. "Where can we go? They will hunt us everywhere." Daniel looked at the half-built lungs, sparks still faintly glowing from his earlier work. He tightened his jaw. "We'll finish your lungs, but we'll do it while running." He packed a small bag with tools, wires, and parts. Lyra watched him, clutching her chest as her breathing grew harsher. She whispered, "I don't want you to die for me." Daniel paused and looked at her, his voice steady. "I'd rather die fighting for what's right than live doing nothing." They slipped into the shadowy halls of the lower decks. Daniel carried Lyra wrapped in a cloak, her fragile breaths hidden under the noise of the station. But the patrols were everywhere, scanning travelers, asking questions. Whispers spread fast. The human was helping the alien child. Daniel ducked into an abandoned storage tunnel. Rust covered the walls, old pipes hissed with leaking steam. Lyra coughed violently, her body shaking. Daniel laid her down gently, fear in his eyes. Her skin had turned pale, her breath shallow. She did not have much time left. He pulled out the half-built lungs from his bag. The device was fragile, incomplete, but he worked quickly, connecting wires, shaping metal. His hands moved fast, driven by desperation. Lyra whispered weakly, "They will kill you if they find us." Daniel shook his head without looking up. "Then let them try." A sudden clang echoed in the tunnel. Daniel froze, his tools trembling in his hands. Voices echoed closer, the patrol searching. "Check the tunnels, the human is near." Lyra's eyes widened with terror. Daniel quickly lifted her into his arms. Grabbing the bag with the other hand, he ran deeper into the dark tunnel, the sound of boots chasing behind them. The tunnel twisted like a maze, steam clouds rising from broken pipes. Daniel's breath grew heavy, but he did not stop. Lyra clung weakly to him, whispering, "Don't stop." Behind them, the patrol's lights cut through the shadows. beams of white hunting them. A drone's mechanical voice echoed, "Human detected. Surrender immediately." Daniel burst into a wider chamber filled with old machines. He ducked behind a massive rusted engine, his chest heaving. He set Lyra down and quickly pulled wires across the floor. Setting up a trap with his tools, moments later the patrol entered, their lights sweeping the chamber. Daniel pressed a button and sparks exploded. Filling the air with smoke, the guards coughed, blinded. Daniel grabbed Lyra and slipped through a side passage, escaping once more, but his relief was short. As they reached the end of the passage, Daniel saw something that made his blood run cold. A large hollow screen lit up on the wall of the station. Showing his face, the council had declared him a criminal. The message was clear. Human Daniel, wanted for protecting forbidden life. Capture alive or dead? Lyra's eyes filled with tears, guilt heavy on her small face. "This is because of me," she whispered. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "No, this is because of them. Because they forgot what life means, but I haven't." The sound of sirens filled the air. The station alive with the hunt. Daniel lifted Lyra again. Determination burning in his eyes, the chase had truly begun, and he knew there was no turning back. The only way forward was to outrun the galaxy itself. The tunnels of the station grew darker as Daniel carried Lyra deeper underground. His arms ached, his legs burned, but he did not stop. Above them, alarms still screamed. Patrols shouted orders. Drones scanned the halls. Daniel's face was already on every hollow screen, marked as a criminal. He finally reached an old repair chamber, long abandoned. Rust covered the walls. Broken machines lay scattered across the floor. Here the council rarely came. It was a forgotten place. Daniel laid Lyra gently on a workbench and set down his bag of parts. Lyra's breaths were faint, her chest rising in sharp, painful gasps. Her pale skin glistened with sweat, her hands trembling as she clutched her ribs. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can't breathe." Daniel's jaw tightened, fear pressing against his chest. If he waited any longer, she would not survive. He opened the bag and pulled out the half-built lungs. The strange device gleamed faintly under the flickering light. It was fragile, metal, biogel, wires, and filters shaped into something that could mimic breathing. It was not perfect, not polished like alien machines, but it was alive with human invention. Daniel's hands shook as he spread his tools. He was not a surgeon, he was only a mechanic. But his human mind worked in patterns, machines, repairs, replacements, he whispered to himself. The body is just another system. I can fix this system. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. Filled with fear and hope, her voice cracked. "You really think it will work?" Daniel forced a small smile, though his heart was heavy. "I don't know, but I'll give everything I have to try." The chamber filled with the hiss of torches, the click of metal and the buzz of wires. Daniel worked fast, sweat dripping down his brow, sparks flashing as he fused the final parts together. At last, the device looked whole, a pair of shining lungs made of steel and living gel. He held them in his hands, trembling. "This is it," he whispered. Lyra looked at the strange creation, tears forming in her eyes. "No one has ever tried for us," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel placed the device gently beside her. "Well, then I'll be the first." He prepared the tools, his mind racing through every step. This was more than a machine, this was surgery, and one mistake could kill her. But he had no choice, it was risk or certain death. He placed a mask over her mouth, connected to a temporary air pump he had built. Lyra's breathing steadied for a moment. Buying him precious time, her eyes met his, filled with trust. "Do it," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard, then nodded. He cut carefully, his hands steady though his heart pounded. Her chest opened, revealing the weak, failing organs inside. They were shriveled, blackened by poison, barely functioning. Daniel's chest tightened at the sight. "She's been dying for a long time," he whispered. He removed the damaged lungs with trembling care. Placing them aside, Lyra's body was so small, so fragile. The air pump kept her alive, but only for a short while. Daniel's hands moved quickly, connecting the artificial lungs, attaching wires to nerves. Every spark of energy made the new lungs twitch. Alive but unstable, Lyra's body jolted, her breathing sharp and irregular. Daniel's voice grew urgent. "Stay with me, Lyra. Stay with me." He tightened the last screws, sealed the connections, and fused the final circuits. The artificial lungs began to pulse faintly, expanding and contracting. But her chest did not rise. She lay still, silent. Daniel's heart froze. No, come on, breathe." he whispered, pressing his hands against her chest. He pumped air through the mask, forcing her body to respond. Her head tilted, her lips pale for a terrifying moment. Nothing happened. Then suddenly a shudder ran through her body. Her chest rose, air rushing in. The artificial lungs lit up faintly, glowing with life. She gasped sharply, then coughed. Her eyes flew open, wide and glowing brighter than before. I can breathe, she whispered in disbelief. Daniel sank back exhausted, relief flooding his body. He laughed weakly, wiping sweat from his brow. You scared me, kid, he whispered. Lyra sat up slowly, her breath strong and steady for the first time. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she clutched his hand. You saved me, she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. For a brief moment there was peace. Daniel looked at her and felt something deeper than pride. He had done the impossible. A human had built life from scraps, but the piece shattered in seconds. A red light blinked on the far wall. Daniel's eyes widened. He had forgotten about the surveillance system. A hidden camera above the chamber was glowing, transmitting everything: the surgery, the forbidden lungs, Lyra's survival. All of it had been recorded. Daniel's stomach dropped as the realization hit him. The council had seen everything. They now knew what he had done, and they would never forgive it. Above them, alarms blared again, louder than before. A robotic voice echoed through the chamber. Human mechanic Daniel. Confirmed violation of galactic law. Enforcement units inbound. Lyra clutched his arm, her eyes wide with fear. They're coming, she whispered. Daniel grabbed his tools, his jaw tight. Then we run, he said firmly, though his heart knew this was no longer just a chase. This was war against the law itself, and the galaxy had just declared him guilty. The chamber doors slammed open. Heavy boots echoed against the floor as guards dragged Daniel forward in chains. His face was bruised, his hands bound, but his eyes burned with defiance. Beside him, Lyra stumbled, her small hands tied, though she breathed strong with her new lungs. The galactic courtroom stretched high above them, filled with alien judges. Rows of beings from every corner of the galaxy stared down from balconies. Whispering and hissing, at the center stood the council, their silver eyes glowing with cold authority. They looked down at Daniel as if he were less than dirt. A voice thundered across the hall. Human mechanic Daniel, you stand accused of breaking sacred law, of creating forbidden organs, of saving a life that was meant to end. The crowd murmured, some with anger, some with shock. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, they want to erase you. Daniel stood tall. Though his chains rattled, his voice was steady. I saved a child, is that my crime? Gasps spread through the hall. The judges narrowed their eyes. You interfered with natural order, one hissed. You gave her lungs when fate had decided otherwise. Daniel's jaw tightened. No, he said firmly. It wasn't fate, it was neglect. It was cruelty. The courtroom erupted in shouts, some calling for silence, others demanding his death. But the council raised a clawed hand, and the noise fell quiet. One judge leaned forward, his silver eyes gleaming. Humanity is reckless. You build without permission, you destroy balance. You act as if rules do not apply. Daniel's voice grew louder, stronger. Maybe we are reckless. Maybe we break rules, but sometimes rules are wrong. Sometimes laws are made to keep the powerful safe while the weak die. The crowd stirred. Whispers spreading like fire, Daniel continued, his voice echoing across the chamber. Look at her, she is alive. She's breathing because I dared to care when all of you looked away. He pointed toward Lyra, who stood trembling but proud, her breaths strong and clear. Is that what you fear? That one human can do what your laws forbid? A silence fell across the hall for the first time. Some of the aliens looked at Lyra not with disgust, but with curiosity. Her glowing eyes met theirs. And she whispered, I only wanted to live. I never asked for war, but the council's faces remained cold. One judge hissed, compassion cannot excuse rebellion. If we allow this, others will follow. Chaos will spread, another judge added. This human is proof that their kind is dangerous. Too bold, too defiant. Daniel's fists clenched, the chains biting into his skin. Dangerous? He spat. Yes, maybe we are, but not because we kill, not this time. We are dangerous because we refuse to let children die when you turn away. The chamber roared again. Voices colliding, some demanded punishment. Others murmured in doubt. The council struck the floor with a staff, silencing the noise. The verdict will be decided, the head judge announced. Guards dragged Daniel and Lyra to the center platform. A great beam of light shone down on them. The council raised their hands, the air heavy with judgment. The head judge's voice thundered. This human's fate will show the galaxy what happens when law is broken. Lyra struggled against her chains, her voice breaking. Please. He only wanted to save me. He is not a criminal. The guards shoved her back, silencing her cries. Daniel looked at her with steady eyes, whispering, Don't be afraid. Lyra, the council began to speak, their voices layered and heavy. By our law, the human is guilty. By our law, he must. Suddenly, a loud sound cut through the chamber. It was a gasp. Hundreds of aliens rising from their seats. Pointing, Lyra had torn free from her chains with sudden strength. She stepped forward, her glowing eyes fierce. Her voice louder than ever. Enough, she shouted. The hall fell silent, all eyes on her. She stood tall, her chest rising strong with the artificial lungs Daniel had given her. Your laws left my people to die. Your laws called us weak. But look at me now, she cried. Her voice echoed across the vast chamber. I live because one human cared. Because he dared to fight your law, and you call that a crime? The crowd erupted. Some in cheers, some in fury. The council's silver eyes flashed with anger. The head judge slammed the staff. Silence! We will not be lectured by a child. But the whispers would not stop. Aliens in the balconies murmured. She breathes. She should have been dead, but she breathes. A human built this. Impossible. Daniel watched, his chest tight with pride and fear. He knew the council could not allow this moment to spread. They would silence her, or him, or both. But he also saw something new in the eyes of the crowd. Doubt, the seeds of change, small but alive. The council's voices overlapped, cold and final. The human is guilty. The punishment. Death. Gasps filled the hall. Guards gripped Daniel's arms tighter, dragging him toward the execution chamber. Lyra screamed, her voice cracking. No! Please don't take him. Daniel turned his head toward her, his eyes calm but burning with fire. Remember, Lyra, breathe free no matter what happens. The guards pushed him forward, the light of the chamber growing harsh. The council raised their hands to seal the verdict. But just as the final words were about to fall, a blinding light filled the hall. A new voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and defiant. Stop. The entire court turned toward the sound. And what they saw would change the trial forever. The chamber froze in silence. The council's final words hung unfinished in the air, broken by that single shout. Stop! The voice had cried sharp and strong, echoing through the hall like thunder. From the balcony above, a group of figures stepped into view. They were not judges nor guards, but travelers, merchants, and workers from across the galaxy. Their eyes burned with something the council had long feared. Rebellion. One stepped forward. A tall insectoid merchant, his voice clear. This human is no criminal, he is a savior. The crowd stirred, whispers swelling into shouts. Others rose to their feet, voices joining. He saved a child when no one else would. Is compassion now a crime? The council struck the staff, trying to silence them. But the noise only grew louder. Daniel stood in the center. His chains still heavy on his wrists, he looked around, stunned. As voices of support spread through the balconies, Lyra's eyes shone with hope. For the first time since the trial began, she whispered, They are listening. They are finally listening. The council's silver eyes flared with anger. Silence! The head judge roared, his voice shaking the hall. The human has broken law, and law cannot be undone by noise. But Daniel stepped forward, his chains clinking, his voice cutting through the chaos. Law without justice is nothing, he said, his voice steady. If your rules demand a child must die, then your rules are wrong, gasps echoed. But this time no one silenced him. Even some guards shifted uncomfortably. Their grips on their weapons loosening, Lyra stepped beside him, her new lungs rising strong as she shouted, He gave me life. You call that crime, but I call it hope. The crowd erupted again, voices clashing, anger and courage mixing in the air. The council saw control slipping, their power cracking in front of the galaxy. The head judge's voice thundered, desperate now. Enough! Guards, take them both away. Erase them before the infection of their words spreads further. The guards moved, but hesitation filled their steps. Some glanced at the crowd, then at Lyra. Her small frame stood tall, glowing with new life. Her breaths a living symbol of defiance. One guard lowered his weapon, whispering, She breathes. She should have been dead, but she lives. Daniel saw the hesitation and he seized it. Look at her. Look at me. If humans can build life when all of you turn away, what does that say about your laws? The chamber grew louder, shouts of support mixing with hisses of fury. The council's silver eyes narrowed, filled with rage and fear. They could no longer control the room. Lyra's voice rang out, steady and fierce. My people are dying because of your silence, but this human showed me that one act of compassion can change everything. Her small hand gripped Daniel's arm, her glowing eyes scanning the chamber. If one human can do this, imagine what others could do. Imagine a galaxy where life matters more than law. The words struck deep. Even those who doubted felt the weight of her voice. The hall shook with voices now, no longer whispers but chants. Life before law. Life before law. The council's staff slammed the floor again. But the chant grew louder, unstoppable. For the first time in centuries, their authority was drowning beneath the will of the people. The head judge's silver eyes burned. This is rebellion, he hissed. And rebellion must be crushed. He raised his clawed hand, signaling the drones. Metal wings unfolded as enforcement machines dropped from the ceiling. Weapons glowing, Lyra's chest tightened with fear. But Daniel stepped in front of her, his eyes fierce. If you want her, you'll have to go through me, he growled. The drones aimed their weapons, their lights locking on him. The hall trembled with tension. One spark, and the trial would turn into a massacre. But before the drones fired, something unexpected happened. Several guards turned their weapons, not on Daniel, but on the drones. One guard shouted, "No more! I will not kill a man for saving a child." Another threw down his weapon, stepping back. The crowd roared. The chamber splitting into chaos. Daniel pulled Lyra close, shielding her as the chamber erupted. Some fought for the council, others for freedom. The air filled with smoke. Sparks and shouts through it all. Daniel and Lyra ran, breaking free from the chains as they escaped the platform. They burst into the outer halls, alarms blaring louder than ever. Daniel's breath was heavy, but Lyra's was strong, steady, alive. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes fierce. You risked everything, and now the galaxy knows. Daniel gave a tired smile. Let them know. Maybe it's time the galaxy remembered what it means to be human. Behind them, the council chamber shook with rebellion. Voices, weapons, and fire clashing in chaos. The old order was crumbling. Though its grip was not gone, but a spark had been lit, and sparks could grow into flames. Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the stars. Breathing deeply with her new lungs, the galaxy stretched endless before her. Full of danger, but also full of hope. She whispered, "One day, I will return this kindness, Daniel, one day. I will save you like you saved me." Daniel stood beside her, his eyes on the horizon of stars. He knew the council would not stop hunting them. But he also knew something had changed. A story had begun, one that could not be silenced. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, whispers were already spreading. Not of rebellion, not of war, but of a single truth. That when every world ignored a child's cry, it was a human who stood up. And that legacy was only the beginning.